In 1954, United Fruit helped convince Washington to topple Guatemala's democratically elected president. That is how a soft, sweet, seedless banana became Earth's most dangerous fruit. The company's lobbyists, lawyers, and PR men spent years portraying the president as a communist threat. The CIA listened. It armed, trained, and funded an invasion force, brought down the government, and installed a military regime. It worked. But that same year, another power was dismantling the banana empire from below. Across Central America, a fungus in the soil was killing the world's most popular variety. Farm by farm, plantation by plantation. No fence, no bribe, and no army could keep it out. The banana your grandparents ate was erased from commercial dominance by a microscopic organism. The banana in your kitchen is its replacement. Think about that. An industry capable of helping bring down a president could not save its perfect fruit. And now the replacement faces the same catastrophe. The fungus is already confirmed in 21 countries. The global banana trade escaped extinction once by betting everything on a single substitute. Later, you will see how that hidden cost set up the same trap sprung again. We think of the banana as the most ordinary thing in the world. It's the joke fruit, the lunchbox fruit, the thing you grab without thinking on your way out the door. It costs pennies. It comes with its own wrapper. It's so cheap and so reliable that it's practically invisible. But that ordinariness is a magic trick, and it took 10,000 years, 3 continents, at least 1 coup, an entire genre of political corruption, and a body count to pull off. Behind that 15-cent fruit is a story of empire and extinction, of scientists racing a fungus and workers poisoned in the name of a perfect yellow peel. The banana is the most engineered, most fragile, most politically dangerous fruit humans have ever eaten. To understand how we got here, we have to go back to the very beginning, before the boxes and the boats and the corporations, back to a jungle where the banana was something you would never recognize. Picture a banana. Now forget it, because the original was nothing like the one you know. If you had walked through a rainforest in New Guinea 8 or 10,000 years ago and reached up to pull down a wild banana, you would have held something short, hard, and stubby, closer to a fat green thumb than the long yellow crescent in your fruit bowl. And if you'd tried to bite into it, you'd have regretted it immediately. The wild banana was packed with seeds, dozens of them, hard black beads the size of peppercorns, crammed so tightly into the flesh that there was barely any fruit to eat at all. Imagine biting into something that was mostly gravel, wrapped in a thin, starchy, faintly sweet paste. It was astringent, it was fibrous, and it fought back. This was Musa, the wild ancestor, and it survived by making its fruit a delivery system for seeds, not a treat for humans. Every wild banana was a gamble that some animal would swallow it, seeds and all, and carry the next generation somewhere new. For millions of years, that arrangement worked perfectly, and the banana had absolutely no reason to be delicious. It didn't need us. But somewhere in the highlands of what is now Papua New Guinea, people looked at this armored, seedy, barely edible thing and saw a future in it. That decision, made by people whose names we will never know, is the reason bananas exist as food at all. The wild banana still grows today, and botanists who've tasted it describe it in almost identical terms, mostly seed, hardly worth the effort. Everything sweet and soft and edible about the modern banana is something humans built, one careful choice at a time, across a span of time so long it dwarfs the pyramids, dwarfs Rome, dwarfs writing itself. The story of the banana begins in a wetland, in the New Guinea highlands, at a place archaeologists now call Cook Swamp. People were doing something that almost no one else on Earth had figured out yet. They were farming. Cook is one of the oldest independent sites of agriculture on the planet, a place where humans invented farming on their own, without borrowing the idea from anyone. And among the crops they tended, buried in the layers of ancient drained soil, are the traces of banana cultivation. UNESCO places banana-based agriculture at Cook at roughly 7,000 to 6,400 years before the present, making it one of the earliest documented instances of deliberate banana cultivation anywhere on Earth. The evidence is delicate and strange. It comes in the form of phytoliths, microscopic pieces of silica, that plants form inside their cells, tiny glassy skeletons that survive in the dirt for millennia after the plant itself has rotted away. The phytoliths at Cook tell us that people weren't just gathering wild bananas, they were growing them, tending them, and choosing them. And that choosing is where the miracle happened. Every so often, a banana plant would produce fruit with fewer seeds, or a little more flesh, or a slightly sweeter taste, usually because of a genetic accident, sometimes because two different wild species had crossed. The farmers of Cook noticed. They saved those plants. They propagated them, not from seeds but from shoots and suckers, selecting the ones they liked and letting the rest go. Do that for 100 years and you nudge the fruit. Do it for 1,000 years and you transform it. Do it for several thousand years, generation after generation, making the same quiet judgment. Keep this one, discard that one, and you turn an inedible seed pod into a food. There was no laboratory, no science of genetics, no plan. There were just people who wanted something better to eat, making choices whose consequences would ripple across millennia and reach all the way to your kitchen counter. Once humans had made the banana worth eating, it started to travel, and it traveled the way ideas and treasures travel, along the trade routes that stitched the ancient world together. From New Guinea and Southeast Asia, it moved west, carried in the holds of boats and the bundles of merchants, planted at every stop by people who understood immediately how valuable a sweet, filling, easy-to-grow fruit could be. It had reached India well before the Common Era, where it took such deep root that many ancient cultures assumed the banana had always been theirs. It appears in Indian religious texts, in medicine, in myth. When Alexander the Great pushed his armies into the Indus Valley in the 4th century, before the Common Era, his soldiers encountered the banana growing there. From India, the banana continued its long march westward, and this is where it picked up its name, though not in the way the story is usually told. The word banana reached English through Spanish or Portuguese, and most etymologists trace it further back to a West African language, possibly Wolof, carried along the Atlantic slave trade routes. What is genuinely true and genuinely evocative is the vocabulary the trade itself produced. In the language of the banana business, a cluster of fruit is called a hand, and each individual banana is called a finger. Look at a bunch of bananas curving up off the stem, and you're looking at a hand, with each fruit curving out like a finger. Whether you're a medieval Arab merchant, a Victorian dock worker, or a modern supermarket buyer, you've been reaching for bananas by the hand for centuries. The banana had crossed from the jungles of the Pacific to the markets of the Mediterranean and beyond, entirely in the hands of people trading, planting, and passing it along. For all its travels, the banana had spent its entire history in the Old World, in Asia and Africa, and around the edges of the Mediterranean. It had never seen the Americas. That changed in the 1500s, and it changed because of empire. When Portuguese and Spanish ships began crossing the Atlantic, they brought the banana with them, carried out of West Africa and the Canary Islands, and planted in the warm, wet tropics of the Caribbean and Central and South America. And the banana found paradise. The New World tropics were, in a sense, the perfect banana factory that had simply been sitting empty, waiting. The climate was warm and humid year-round, the soil was rich, and there were no native pests or diseases that had ever evolved to attack a banana, because bananas had never grown there before. Set loose in this new Eden, the plants exploded across the region. Within a couple of centuries, bananas and their starchier cousins, plantains, were growing across the Caribbean islands and along the coasts of Central and South America, feeding local populations and slowly weaving themselves into the food and culture of an entire hemisphere. But for now, the banana was still a local crop, eaten close to where it grew. It was perishable, it bruised, it ripened fast and rotted faster, and there was no way to move it far before it turned to mush. In Europe and North America, the banana was still almost unknown, a curiosity you might read about but would probably never taste. That was about to change, and when it did, it would change with breathtaking speed, turning this humble tropical staple into a symbol of luxury, an object of obsession, and the foundation of one of the most powerful and ruthless corporate empires the world had ever seen. In the 1800s, if you lived in New York or London and someone handed you a banana, you might not have known what to do with it. It was exotic, it was expensive, it was a treat for the wealthy, something you'd see displayed under glass at a fine grocer, wrapped individually in foil, and eaten carefully with a knife and fork, so as not to seem crude. The reason was simple: geography and rot. Bananas grew 1,000 miles away in the tropics, and before refrigerated shipping existed, getting them to a northern city before they spoiled was almost impossible. A banana that made it to a table in Boston had won a race against decay, and its price reflected the miracle. That began to shift in 1876, at the Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia, the Great World's Fair, celebrating 100 years of American independence. Among the wonders on display were bananas, sold to curious fairgoers, each one wrapped in foil, for the princely sum of around 10 cents apiece. 10 cents in 1876 was real money, the better part of an hour's wages for many workers spent on a single piece of fruit. But people paid it, and they talked about it, and the banana's fame began to spread. What followed was a genuine craze. As faster steamships and, eventually, refrigerated holds began to shrink the distance between the plantation and the plate, bananas poured into American ports in ever greater numbers, and the price began to fall. The banana went from a rich person's novelty to a working family's snack in the span of a single generation. It became so common, so quickly, that it wrote itself into the culture, most famously as the banana peel, the discarded skin left on the sidewalk, the setup for 1,000 slapstick pratfalls. A fruit had to be everywhere, in every hand, and on every street, for slipping on its peel to become the universal joke. The banana had arrived, and the men who controlled its journey from the tropics to the table were about to become some of the most powerful people on Earth. The banana empire began, almost absurdly, with a railroad and a favor. In the 1870s, an American entrepreneur working in Costa Rica took on the punishing job of building a railway through the jungle to the coast. It was brutal work, it swallowed lives and money, and to keep himself afloat during construction, he started planting bananas along the tracks and shipping them north to sell. The bananas made more money than the railroad. That realization, that the fruit was worth more than the iron, planted the seed of an empire. Companies merged and grew, and in the year 1899, they consolidated into a single colossus, the United Fruit Company. And United Fruit did not think small. At its height, it controlled millions of acres of land across 7 countries in Central America and the Caribbean, an estimated 3.5 million acres of total holdings, an area larger than some of the nations it operated in. It owned the plantations, but that was only the beginning. It owned the railroads that carried the fruit, the ports where the ships docked, the ships themselves, and the telegraph lines that carried the news. In many of these countries, the company was the largest landowner, the largest employer, and the most powerful institution, more powerful than the government itself. And when a government proved inconvenient, United Fruit had the money and the reach to do something about it. Through bribery, through pressure, through lobbying Washington, and ultimately through the influence it wielded over U.S. foreign policy. The 1954 CIA-backed coup in Guatemala, which removed a land-reforming president who had dared to redistribute idle United Fruit acreage, is the starkest example. Whole nations were bent to the shape of the fruit trade. The company's grip was so total, and its manipulation of these small, dependent economies so blatant, that it inspired its own vocabulary. The American writer O. Henry coined a phrase to describe a country whose politics and economy had been captured and hollowed out to serve a single export crop and the foreign corporation that controlled it. He called it a banana republic. The term was a joke, and it was also deadly accurate. To build an empire on a fruit, you need the fruit to be predictable, and United Fruit found the perfect one. Its name was Gros Michel, French for Big Mike, and for the better part of a century, it was the banana. If your great-grandparents ate a banana, this is the one they ate. And by many accounts, it was superior to what we have today. Sweeter, creamier, with a thicker skin that made it tougher and easier to ship without bruising. People who remember it swear it was a better banana. But the very thing that made Gros Michel perfect for an industrial empire also made it uniquely vulnerable. And to understand why, you have to understand something strange and slightly unsettling about bananas. The commercial banana does not reproduce with seeds. Look at the banana you eat, and you'll see only tiny brown specks running down the center, the vestigial ghosts of seeds that never develop. The plant is propagated entirely by cloning, by taking shoots from an existing plant and growing new ones that inherit the same genome as the parent, which means that every Gros Michel banana on every plantation across 7 countries was propagated from the same genetic template, copied billions of times and spread across an entire hemisphere. Not meaningfully different, genetically uniform. For a corporation, this was a dream. Total uniformity, total predictability, a fruit that looked, tasted, and ripened exactly the same everywhere on Earth. But nature has a word for a vast population of organisms with no genetic diversity to fall back on. That word is vulnerable, and somewhere in the soil, something was already waiting to prove it. The killer's name was Panama disease, caused by a soil-borne fungus called Fusarium, in a form scientists now label Race 1. It attacks the banana from below, entering through the roots, then spreading up into the plant's internal plumbing, the vessels that carry water from soil to leaf. The fungus clogs those vessels, cuts off the water, and the plant wilts and dies from the inside out. And here is the nightmare. The fungus doesn't need the plant to survive. It can lie dormant in the soil for years, waiting, so that even after you clear a dead plantation and burn every plant, the ground itself stays poisoned. You cannot spray it away. You cannot easily kill it. And in a field of genetically uniform bananas, if the fungus can kill one plant, it can kill every plant, because they all share the same lack of resistance. That is the fatal flaw of monoculture laid bare. The disease had been noticed as far back as the late 1800s, but through the first half of the 20th century, it spread like a slow-motion fire through the great Gros Michel plantations of Central America and the Caribbean. Farms that had produced fortunes turned to graveyards of drooping, dying plants. The company's response was to run, abandon the infected land, clear virgin jungle somewhere else, and start again, buying time but never solving the problem. By the 1950s and 60s, the situation had become impossible. The fungus was everywhere the fruit was grown, the infected soil kept expanding, and there was no cure and no resistant variety of Gros Michel to plant instead. As research published in Nature Microbiology in 2024 documents, this Fusarium Race 1 devastated the Gros Michel-based banana trade. The cultivar survives in gardens and on small farms where the soil remains uninfected, but as a commercial crop, its empire was finished. The company that had helped topple governments was, against this enemy, completely powerless. Facing commercial collapse, the industry needed a new banana, and it found one that could survive where Gros Michel could not. It was called the Cavendish, and it had one supreme virtue. It was resistant to the strain of Panama disease that had destroyed its predecessor. In the middle of the 20th century, the industry pivoted, replanting with Cavendish across the tropics. This is the banana you eat today. Almost certainly every banana you have ever bought in a supermarket has been a Cavendish. But those who knew the old fruit were rarely impressed. The Cavendish was widely considered blander, less sweet, more prone to bruising, a fruit chosen not because it was the best, but because it could survive. We didn't pick the tastiest banana, we picked the one the fungus couldn't kill. And the switch came with costs far darker than a duller flavor. To keep these vast new monocultures alive and profitable, the industry leaned hard on chemistry, and in the French Caribbean, the consequences were devastating. On the islands of Martinique and Guadeloupe, a pesticide called chlordecone was used on banana plantations from 1972 until 1993 to fight a beetle that bored into the crop. Chlordecone did its job, and then it never left. It is extraordinarily persistent, lingering in the soil, the water, and the food chain for decades. According to French health authorities at ANSES, a study conducted in 2013 and 2014 detected chlordecone in more than 90% of the general population of those two islands. More than 9 in 10 people carrying in their bodies a chemical from a pesticide meant to protect a fruit. That is the hidden ledger of the cheap banana. Behind the low price at the checkout lies a long history of seized land, of grueling and dangerous labor, of ecological damage, and, in this case, of a population poisoned across generations. The banana's convenience was never really free. Someone, somewhere, was always paying, and often they were the very people who grew it. Here is the part of the story that should genuinely alarm you, because it is not history. It is happening now. When the industry replaced Gros Michel with Cavendish, it did not fix the underlying problem. It just planted a new monoculture. Cavendish, like its predecessor, is propagated by cloning, grown by the billions across the world's plantations, every plant carrying the same inherited genome. It was resistant to the old strain of Panama disease. But nature adapts, and a new strain has emerged, genetically distinct from the one that ended Gros Michel's reign, and this one targets the Cavendish. It is called Fusarium Tropical Race 4, or TR4, and research published in Nature Microbiology in 2024 makes the situation stark. This genetically distinct fungus now threatens the very Cavendish that replaced Gros Michel. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, TR4 has now been confirmed in 21 banana-producing countries. It lives in the soil, persists there for more than 2 decades, and spreads in ways that are almost impossible to contain, on infected soil clinging to a boot, on a truck tire moving between farms, on a plant cutting carried to a new field. In 2023, TR4 reached Venezuela's producing areas, and by March 2026, the FAO was reporting a declared phytosanitary emergency in response. The Cavendish, which accounts for roughly 50 million tons of production every year, is now facing the same kind of threat that destroyed its predecessor, for exactly the same reason. There is a glimmer of hope. In April 2024, food safety authorities in Australia and New Zealand approved a genetically modified banana called CuCav4, engineered specifically for resistance to Panama disease, and found to be as safe and as nutritious as a conventional banana. Whether science can outrun the fungus, whether the world will accept a genetically engineered banana, and whether we will finally break the cycle of betting everything on a single genetic template, those questions are being decided right now while you watch. Step back from the disease and the danger for a moment, and look at what the banana has become, because the scale of it is genuinely staggering. The banana is among the world's most produced and consumed fruits, and the world's most exported fresh fruit by volume. For hundreds of millions of people across the tropics, bananas and plantains are not a treat but a staple, a fundamental source of daily calories, as central to their diet as rice or bread or potatoes are to others. And it is an economic lifeline. For many developing nations, bananas are a crucial export, a source of jobs, foreign income, and stability for entire regions. Millions of people wake up every day and go to work growing, cutting, washing, packing, and shipping bananas so that a fruit picked green in a tropical field can arrive, perfectly ripe, in a supermarket thousands of miles away, at a price so low it barely registers. Think about the machinery of that. A banana is harvested while still green and hard, cooled to slow its ripening, loaded onto refrigerated ships, carried across oceans, trucked to distribution centers, and often deliberately ripened in special rooms with controlled gas and temperature, so it turns yellow at exactly the right moment to hit the shelf. It is one of the most sophisticated logistics operations in the history of food, an invisible global relay race run millions of times a day, all to deliver something you'll eat in 90 seconds and probably forget. That is the banana's quiet triumph and its quiet danger at once. We have built a world-spanning system feeding and employing hundreds of millions of people and balanced the whole thing on a single genetically uniform clone, the same gamble that failed once already. So what is the banana really trying to tell us, sitting there so innocently in the bowl? It is a warning wrapped in a peel. The story of the banana is the story of what happens when we take something wild and diverse and reduce it to a single, uniform, profitable clone, then build an empire on top of it and act surprised when it comes crashing down. It happened with Gros Michel. It is threatening to happen with Cavendish. And the mechanism is not abstract. It is a boot. A single muddy boot walking from an infected Cavendish field to a clean one carries enough Fusarium spores to contaminate that soil for 20 years. One truck, one infected cutting, slipped into a shipment. That is how TR4 crossed continents, and that is why 21 countries are already dealing with it. The banana also carries a warning about power. about what it means when a corporation grows so large that it can shape foreign policy to protect the flow of a fruit, and about the human cost, the seized land, the exploited labor, the poisoned soil, and the 90% of islanders still carrying chlordecone in their bodies, that hides behind a low price and a bright yellow peel. And yet, for all of that, the banana is also a monument to human ingenuity and patience, to thousands of years of farmers in a New Guinea swamp turning a bag of seeds into something sweet, to merchants carrying fruit across a medieval world, to scientists today racing a fungus with the tools of genetics to save it one more time. It was there when empires first tasted sweetness. It was there when corporations rewrote maps. It was there when a fungus rewrote history. And it is sitting in your kitchen right now. The next time you peel a banana, hold it for just a second before you eat it. In your hand is a fruit that began as an armored bundle of seeds in a Pacific jungle, that thousands of years of anonymous farmers patiently reshaped into something sweet, that traders carried across a medieval world and named in languages that have since vanished. In your hand is the fruit that built a corporate empire spanning 7 countries and millions of acres, that helped justify a CIA-backed coup, that gave the world the phrase "Banana Republic," that lost its commercial dominance to a fungus in the soil and was replaced by the Cavendish, which is now facing the same fate, already confirmed in 21 countries, spreading on the soles of boots and the wheels of trucks. In your hand is roughly 50 million tons a year of the world's most exported fresh fruit, a lifeline for hundreds of millions of people, and one of the most fragile crops on Earth, balanced on a single genetic template. The banana is not ordinary at all. It is one of the most extraordinary things you will ever hold, a small yellow record of human ambition, cruelty, cleverness, and risk, empire and extinction, science and slapstick, all wrapped in a peel you're about to throw away. So here is the question I can't stop asking. If we already watched one banana's commercial empire collapse and responded by planting the same trap all over again, will we actually learn the lesson this time? Or will your grandchildren grow up eating a banana you've never even heard of? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if this rewired the way you'll look at your next piece of fruit, subscribe to Tales of the Table, where we uncover the hidden history behind the food in your life every week.